Hey guys, and welcome to episode 169 of the OCDstories.com podcast. Now, in this episode, I interview two professors and psychologists from Norway. That is Gerd Kvale and Bjarne Hansen. They created the Bergen format, which is a 4-day treatment format for OCD. And I'm excited to share this with you. You may have seen this treatment method talked about a lot in the press, in the media, and on various OCD websites in recent months. That's because they've done a big study looking into it, and but they have been doing this for quite a while. And it was great to get them on to kind of finally talk about their approach to treating OCD. So using ERP primarily over 4 days. Quite intensive, long days. So, but we go into their stories, so why they got into research in OCD. We talk a bit about what OCD treatment's like in Norway, which is fascinating. And then we go into the Bergen format. So what does the 4 days look like? What goes on in the 4 days? How is it approached? We talk about maintenance. That is, towards the end of therapy, your therapist might say, okay, how can we kind of maintain this going on? How can you keep doing ERP and using the things you've learned? So we talk about how they achieve that within the 4 days. And you may hear me talk about or say the word Y-box, and that is the Yale Brown Obsessive Compulsive Scale. It's just a scale used sometimes with therapists and clinicians, but especially in research, they use it to see how severe OCD symptoms are, and they do that sort of before, middle, and end, and at follow-up stages to see, if what they're testing is being effective. So I wanted to explain that so you're not kind of baffled when you hear me say that. Then we talk about the rollout plan. So they're trying to work with different clinics around the world to try and get this treatment format in different parts of the world, and they're going to the States currently to put it in one state there. And then we go into words of hope. I found both of them really inspirational, and then the general questions at the end. But yeah, they were fantastic. I enjoyed talking to them and honor what they're doing. And in fact, Time magazine put them in for 2018 in their 50 most influential people in healthcare, which is pretty awesome. So good work to them. And if you've enjoyed this podcast and it's helped you anyway, it would mean the world to me if you could leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen to this. It lets me reach more people and hopefully help them too. So without further ado, here is Gerd and Bjarne. On the podcast today, I have Gerd Kvale and Bjarne Hansen. Apologies if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Both professors and psychologists at the University of Bergen and at Haukeland University Hospital Bergen. They have created the Bergen 4-day OCD treatment format. Welcome to the podcast, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you. Really nice to be here and talk to you.
It's good to have you here, and thank you for agreeing to come on. So I usually ask my guests if they have an OCD story or something like that. But when I get clinicians on the show, I always like to ask them, why research or treat OCD? What kind of got you into it?
I have been, since I first became a psychologist many years ago, I've always been fascinated with anxiety disorders and treating anxiety disorders. And combining that with also developing and ensuring that patients get proper treatment, treatment that works. And when I first met the first OCD patient I met, I realized that it was such a huge difference that the good treatment, psychological treatment that works, what a change that could make in her life. It was really something. Her life was totally changed, and I also realized that I thought at that time that woman, it was a young woman, 42 years old, with 3 kids. If she hadn't gotten the proper treatment, good treatment, then she would have been sort of stuck in really huge trouble. It wouldn't go away. And she couldn't go anywhere where she really could get the help. And it did not only influence her, but it was the whole family, the kids, the husband, everything. So it was so totally handicapping for her. And then I knew that actually as a psychologist, we could help. We could do an enormous difference in this young woman's life. And that really was a sort of a turning point for me as course for OCD. So then I decided that I would really, really like to dedicate most of my time actually to working with OCD patients, or starting really with them, and then sort of refine the treatment formulas. Because when I met this woman, I was working in a small place actually, not in Bergen. I was away from Bergen in a very small community. And she would have to travel for a long distance to come to a psychologist. And, because of that, I needed to treat her, to offer her concentrated treatment at the time. And I had been working then for quite a number of years with one session treatment for specific phobias. So I was used to concentrated formulas. I really like concentrated formulas because I knew what the difference it could make in a short time. So this first OCD patient has really changed my sort of course, my academic or professional course. She was treated in 2 days. In this, she stayed overnight in the hotel actually, and she was treated. And after that, she could go back to her family and she could start a new life. And I thought that it's really, really too bad that not all patients can access that kind of treatment. Because in Norway at that time it wasn't really good treatment for OCD patients. So that was a turning point for me, and I have not regretted it. So after that, and that must be 15 years ago, something like that, for me.
Wow.
Before that, I was mainly working with other anxiety disorders. But that meeting this patient, this young woman, really made a difference in my professional and academic life.
Well, yeah, thank you for sharing that. And Bjarne, what about you?
I think when I started on a PhD project on OCD treatment back in 2002. And it was both, it was basically about how we can improve and how we can do the treatment better. It was so fascinating to see that at the same time as we need to improve and to refine the treatment, the main problem in at least Norway was that the treatment wasn't available. So it felt kind of like a challenge, not to refine and to improve the treatment if it's not going to be available for the patients. So and I was working at that time at the clinic in Trondheim in Norway. And we would have patients coming in from all over Norway because it was so difficult to find evidence-based treatments at the time. So it was kind of this combined interest in really working to refine the treatment, but also make the treatment available throughout the country, not just in 1 or 2 sites.
Yeah.
And I remember that really because it was so frustrating to have all these patients contacting me at that time who really needed to get this treatment and hear all the stories of people struggling, and also hear all the treatment that was delivered. Patients who've been seeing therapists and going to treatment for years and years, and when they explained and when they was telling what the treatment was all about, it was obvious that it didn't resemble anything that is evidence-based or effective treatment. And of course, when they had been to this treatment for years, it was obvious that it didn't help as well. So it was this really combined interest in refining and improving the treatment, but at the same time really make sure that more patients actually get access to the best kind of care that we can deliver.
Yeah. No, thank you both for sharing that. And it's good also to get some insight into other countries and how they operate with OCD. And so that was fascinating to hear. So it'll be good to explain, what the Bergen format is for those that haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it's before we start talking about the format, maybe we could talk a little more, just tell sort of a little of the background how we started doing it together. Because Bjarne and I, we we didn't know each other until 2009, 10, I think, something like that. 9, we met first. And then we met at a conference where the topic was how to ensure patients with anxiety disorders evidence-based care. And then we both were in the panel discussion. And for me, that was the first time I heard Bjarne. And I was dean at the faculty of psychology. And I had, at that time, the fantastic opportunity to have 2 years of sabbatical where I could actually decide whatever. I could use it on whatever I wanted to. And for me, I knew exactly what I was going to do. And that was to establish a clinic at Haukeland University Hospital for OCD patients. And to offer them evidence-based treatment in a concentrated treatment format. And to combine that with checking out whether it really is working, and also combine it with research. And actually, since the treatment in Norway at that time was not good for OCD patients. So the University Hospital really, when I went to them and asked them, would you like to have 2 years? And you have to add 2 more years, and we can make a project together. And then I need some money. And they were gladly accepting it. And at the time, I got enough resources for half of my position and then for another position. And I said that I met this Bjarne Hansen, who is really, he's running the only specialized clinic in Norway for OCD. It's a clinic in Trondheim. And I would really like to recruit Bjarne to Bergen and ask if he could join here and we could start doing this together. And that was the start of it. So we started talking and we found out very quickly that we basically had the same agenda. And Bjarne's wife was from Bergen, so it was not that difficult to get Bjarne here. So that means that actually the two of us got this very rare opportunity, I'd say, to build a clinic from basic. We could start scratch and we could fill it with evidence-based treatment, concentrated treatment formats, and we could also have quite a latitude to really develop the way we work, both content and also the way we deliver care, and to combine it with basic research. So that was the start of it. And so when we started talking together, Bjarne and I, we both knew this part about dissemination. That was really, we were so dedicated to get it out to the patients, but also to refine, to know. Both of us had extensive experience with one session treatment formats where you prepare the patient and then you deliver the treatment in one prolonged session. And when you do that, you have enough time with the patient to really help and assist and ensure that the patient not only gets individually tailored treatment, but also you have enough time with the patient to really sort of facilitate the change, so that the patient can actually practice. I can start doing things in new ways. So that was the motivation. Both of us had this really interest and experience and dedication for this prolonged one session treatment format. And for myself, I had also worked with this 4-day format for a quite different patient group. It was patients with chronic fatigue. And then I worked with the group format, 4-day group format. But that was many patients in one group and just a couple of therapists. But what we did when we started out in Bergen, we decided that we would like to start out with thinking about individual treatment. That was the format. But then we would concentrate it, do it in nearly one long session, if you like to, and to also let several patients work side by side for these 4 days. So that means that the Bergen 4-day format, is it's an individual treatment in a group setting, we often call it. And then you have 3 to 6 patients and the same amount of therapists working together and really initiating change during those 4 days. So that is sort of the framework around the Bergen 4-day format. And we started out with that, and it has basically, the framework has been the same since that one time, because of course we needed to check whether it worked or not, because the hospital, our bosses at the hospital, they knew that if we started this, that they would lose money, because it wasn't any reimbursement system for this 4-day format in a group setting, individual treatment in a group setting. So they said that if we are going to make this permanent, then we need to have documentation that is working as expected as an evidence-based treatment. So that we did from day one, and it really worked. So that's the sort of the one part of the story.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. That was a really good breakdown, and we can get into the results in a bit if you want. But it'd be good. I know you probably can't go into too much detail, but just a bit more detail around what the 4 days looks like. Like, how long, how many hours a day, how are the days broken down, etc.
Before we start, the patients are first. First of all, this is an ordinary clinic where patients are referred. Maybe Bjarne can tell a little about the framework, the content, a little more about the days.
Cool.
I think, of course, when we have, as Gerd said, one of the main features of the treatment is it's really not 4 days of doing exposures. It's really having one prolonged session. So within these 4 days, you have the 2 days in the middle doing the exposure with patients. So the first day is basically just preparing and planning and doing the psychoeducation. And that would usually just take 2 or 3 hours that day. And the patients wouldn't have any kind of assignments after that. So it's really just preparing. And for us, it's so good to say to the patients that if they are scared to meet up and be part of the treatment, they shouldn't be the first day, because nothing scary is going to happen. Whenever we are doing exposure, we would always have them choose what to do and how to do it. We would never push patients to do anything. But the first day is really a safe day for the patients. It's really getting to know each other, making the program, making a plan for the 2 next days. And then we're doing this kind of prolonged exposure session, which is really 2 days without any kind of breaks, really. It's really making sure that the patients make the important, the essential decisions, and then stick with them to make sure that every time they will be tempted, every time they will feel the urge to do something differently, we would help them to recognize it, help them to know how to deal with it, and support them. So instead of kind of fragmenting the treatments, I have several sessions with so much time in between, without assistance, without the needed help. We really want to stick with the patients until they know how to do this by themselves. And then we need 2 days to do that. The last day is really just wrapping it up, and it's making a plan for time to come. And in the beginning, we were kind of following the patients really closely and giving feedback and staying in touch with them. But we saw that it was really important not to do it. So after the 4 days, we would not give feedback to the patients for a long time, because we need to use those 4 days to enable the patients to go on by themselves, instead of having us like that kind of constant support even in the time after the treatment. So, and that was really, also a shift for us to really rely on the patients being able to do this after just the 4 days. But we saw that it was actually really important to let go of them and let them really both do the job and then take the credit when the treatment is finished. So I think that is also one of the success factors.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. When I was reading in the study, what what I was really impressed by, so I mean the fact that the average Y-box score at the start of treatment was 25.83, and then after treatment was 10.24, so it dropped from severe to mild on average. But what really impressed me was 12 months later at follow-up, it maintained. So, you know, they were still around that 10 mark on the Y-box, which to me says that you guys did a good job at educating participants about maintenance, and I'm guessing continuing to do our ERP on their own. Is that kind of true? Is that what that last day is about, is really pushing that message home to keep going?
I think that is what the whole treatment is about, really. I think that what we see in this kind of treatment is that too many patients would not accept the treatment, so we need to make it more acceptable for the patients, and really, I mean, emphasize on that we're not going to push anyone to do anything. It's really about just assisting, helping, and be there with them until they are able to do it by themselves. We need all that time, all those days, and be with them to do that. And the second thing is that what we see when it comes to treatment results, it is that so many patients would just respond to treatment. You can help them and reduce this level of symptoms, but really cracking the code, really being able to, I mean, break off and move on without the OCD being part of their lives, really being empowered. But what we see is that one of the main differences when it comes to results is just a proportion of patients not just reducing symptoms, but really cracking the code, understanding what this is, and being empowered and able to deal with it in a way that is just like ordinary people.
Yeah, really good point.
It is fascinating because you reported results after 1 year, but you see we have one study or one publication showing that is maintained 4 years later, and it's not a part that it's hardly any dropout. Now we have treated the last time update, Bjarne, 1,700 patients or something like that.
Yes. To
us, it's really a privilege to be able to see this change taking place over and over and over again, and that patients who have been struggling with this for years and years, and that's also one thing that people often we get a question: is this real patients? Is it a high selection? But the thing is that our clinic is a clinic where we are required to offer treatment to all those OCD patients that are living in the uptake area. So we can't as long as they have OCD, we need to treat them. And so it's a very low selection of patients that we have. So it's so representative with as goes for comorbidity, severity, all that kind of things. And many people would guess in the beginning that the patients with the most severe OCD, they can't really benefit from it. Yes, but that's not true. The severity of the OCD is not predictive of treatment outcome, nor is the number of comorbid disorders. So it is something that is, we see people getting healthy again and getting back to just normal life.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. It's and yeah, it was good to see the comorbidities were included within your study. And as you said, like there was an impact on depression as well for those that were affected by that. So that was interesting to see. One question I had was, because I know some people are reluctant or resistant to doing exposure work, and given that you have this 4 days with people, how do you? What's the process of? Let's say you have one of the participants or patients is hesitant and really afraid of doing the exposures. How do you kind of ease them into that?
Well, they're all afraid.
Yeah,
they're all terrified. That's the beginning, and I think that we have. There are two principles or three principles that always should guide all kinds of exposure treatment. And the first is you should never, ever push patients into doing it for several reasons. I mean, it's not effective when you do that. And so it takes away, I mean, a lot of the change that you can actually get with the patients, and they would resist while doing it, and that's not good. So that is one of the really guiding principles of what we do. So we would never, ever push patients into doing anything. The next is, it's so much better to do a small exposure task the right way, without holding back, without, both accelerating and braking at the same time. So it's so much better to choose small exposure tasks in the beginning and do it the proper way. And once you know how to do it, there's no reason to hold back. You should just do whatever your OCD doesn't want you to, and that would promote most change, that would be most relevant in your life, without spending too much time hesitating and thinking about what to do. Go for whatever will promote change that is most relevant in your life and that your OCD will dislike the most. And then it's all about doing it in a way without holding back. And does that make any sense it comes to dealing with this kind of reluctancy and ambivalence? What we would always, when patients would be reluctant, we would always just, really appreciate to hear why and what they fear, what this is all about, of course. And we will also, of course, ask them about what the OCD is taking from their lives, how it's really making it impossible for them to live a normal life and to be with the families and have some kind of work and all those things. And at some point, they just have to make a decision, and we can't do it for them. Yeah. But it's interesting because if you're not there to support them, if you're just, giving good advice and then let go of them and say that you should do this and that and come back next week, I understand that it's almost impossible for so many people to do it.
Mm. And also when you ask, are they not reluctant? And of course, yes, they are. But at the same time, the feedback is that they really appreciate that we are working so closely with them for so long sessions, because it's not, in the beginning we call it intensive treatment, but now we call it concentrated, because it's not necessarily, the intensity sort of gives a very strange sound, because it is working side by side with the patients and really being there when they are struggling at the most and helping them to realize sort of exactly the moments when they are tempted to start visualizing, when they are tempted to do it, and to help them acknowledge these moments as possible turning points. That's why they have a choice to start doing differently. And that is so hard to do when you are alone. So if you have just had 1 hour, 1.5 hours, something like that for the patients, send them out, they have to practice themselves, come back. That is really a tough treatment. That is really a job to be done on your own when you are at the most vulnerable. So I'd say that what we are doing is not that tough. It's different. It's actually being there for the patients when they're struggling the most, and that is the feedback as well. They said, why haven't this been done a long time ago? Because I've been to so many different treatments, and this is the first time that I really give the sort of the care and treatment that I need, working so close with a team of specialists. And also, that is also one thing, that because since we are working, many psychologists or therapists at the same time in the team, it's not like if you were patients, it's not like you would be Bjarne's patients or my patient. We would work with, you would have the full access of the team. So we are working, you might work with one of us one day, the other one the other day, or half of the day, or some hours or something like that in the team. And that's really sort of potentiates the resources of many therapists simultaneously, because we are not working exactly the same. We are working by the same principles, but we're different people, and we can actually give strengths by this to each other and to the patients. So that's also an aspect of it.
Yeah, no, thank you. That makes perfect sense. I'm a big believer in the power of groups as well, and having others around who have OCD. to kind of learn off each other as well. So through the study, and B, kind of just through your experience of doing this method outside of the study or the format, is there anyone you've found that it's not been effective for?
Where the treatment has not been effective?
Yeah. Is there
yes,
any?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, when we do this treatment, we see that 70% almost, and that as also when it comes to follow-up, we see that about 70% would recover from OCD, and of course that means that 30% do not. When it comes to those 30%, we see that some of them have, a lot of response, but not the amount that we would like to, and about 10 to 15% do not have any change at all. It's kind of stable where they started, and one of the really, important things for us is that to provide the best kind of care we can, we will then have a number of patients who do not respond in the first kind of treatment that we deliver, and for research, of course, that is the group that's interesting. Because that is where we need to still improve the treatment and figure out how to do it differently to help those patients. So as a clinician, of course, we are so happy for all the patients who recover. And as a researcher and as researchers, we are most interested in just those patients who do not respond, because that is really where we will have to put in the research efforts to understand what. We do have some indication, and there are studies, not just our studies, showing that the same kind of strategies, the same kind of treatment is highly effective for many of those not responding in the first place. So you really have to analyze and see why didn't they profit from the treatment in the first time that you did it, and you have to adjust and of course specially tailored treatment, and many will actually respond the second time. So they shouldn't be too discouraged, because there's still hope with the same kind of methods. And that is what we're really working on, to see how can we help even more of those not responding in the first place.
And very often when the patients, not always, but very often when the patients are not responding, what they say afterwards is they come back. And what we have seen is that they have not dared to do the exposures fully. They are holding back in a sense. Yeah. And that is what we are focusing, helping them all the time, not to hold back while they are doing the exposures, but really sort of we could lean into the anxiety or do wholeheartedly and really demonstrating that you are doing things that are incompatible with having the OCD when you are doing the exposures. And when the patients do not get the results they really want to, when they come back the next time, typically they say, well, I know why, because I was holding back. And then we see substantial improvement in many of the patients. So it's really not discouraging if they are not responding the first time. It's good. It's still definitely hope. So, and that is also so good to work with this, because it's very, very seldom that we see patients that we think, no, you can't help. Because we will just, again, as Bjarne said, we will tailor, we find out where we could improve it, do it even better together with the patient.
Yeah, and I thank you for going into that. So, I mean, overall, I'm really pleased by reading your study, and it's great to see that this has been effective. And I'm also happy to see that you're starting to roll it out globally. So you've teamed up with the Houston OCD program. So I guess firstly, kind of why them? Why pick Houston?
It's a fascinating story, because we had there was some. First of all, there were some Icelandic therapists who had heard about it. That was actually the first place we disseminated it. So, and when they had participated in treatment with us, they said there's no way we can go back and just do it the way we've been doing it. So they said, please, can't we get trained? So we did help them. We trained them, and actually, the first publication from Iceland is out there. Similar results in Norway. So that was the first place. But then of course, both Bjarne and I have been highly interested in disseminating this, as we said, sort of ensuring that good treatment is available for the patients. But it takes a lot of resources, not only manpower, but a lot of resources to actually be able to disseminate this treatment. So we have had a lot of publicity, and a lot of people have contacted us, philanthropic organizations and different kinds.
Just to add something about you asked, the question was why Houston and the Houston OCD program, and it's so interesting because very often, just collaboration and work like that is so dependent on people and specific people, and the Houston OCD program is run by Professor Bergen, and the way he's been building that clinic is really fascinating. We did not know. We've been in contact with him, and he's running an OCD program at Haukeland Hospital in Massachusetts, and he's also a professor at Haukeland University and medical school. And he's been doing so much, really great work when it comes to both clinical work, research work, and different things. So it was an obvious fit for us to work with him. And when he told about this clinic in Houston, of course, we were eager to get to know them and work with them. And what we've seen now from working with them for quite some time is that you have this group of therapists so engaged in doing, really good clinical work, so able and enthusiastic. So it's really been a thrill to do the training in this program together with them. And next week is actually the first group we're going to do in the States. So we have 4 patients who are lined up, who have been preparing for this. We have a therapist in Houston ready to do this, and we are so excited to see to start the journey in the States.
Wow. Yeah, no, well, wishing you guys all the best of it. Hope it goes as well as you hope, and I'm excited to see kind of where it goes after Houston. Hopefully England. There's but yeah, so all the best with that.
Thank you.
Thank you for that.
No worries. So a couple questions towards the end now that are more generic and more fun, I guess, in terms of, so if you could both pick up the phone and call your 20-year-old self, what would you tell him and her?
Don't give up.
Yeah.
Keep working. Keep helping people.
Nice.
Follow your dedication and do a good job. Never compromise on quality. Always do a good job. Always ensure that you are, if you get setbacks or discourages, there will always be an opportunity. Create opportunities and do good work.
Nice.
I would also was kind of surprised. It was a really good question. Thank you. And one thing I really would say to myself at that time, because when I started doing clinical work and started the training, I got this impression from, the professors and other psychologists. I always got this impression that you shouldn't be too optimistic on behalf of the patients. You should always kind of make sure that they are not being disappointed by the treatment. So you shouldn't, really be too positive about their opportunities and their chances of really getting a normal life, or life without being totally ruined by some kind of disorder. And I think that I would really take that call and say, do not hold back when it comes to seeing the potential in these patients, really understanding that they are quite normal people. They have been tricked into doing something that is really not helpful. They're really trying the best to break this pattern. Without succeeding, you can help them, but never lose sight of the goal, and never discourage, never be blind to really the potential that these people have, and both understand that these are normal people just really struggling hard to break this pattern for themselves.
I think that was an excellent advice.
Yeah, I agree. Thank you. So similar question then is, you've both got a billboard in Norway. What do you want written on that billboard for everyone to see?
What we can write for everyone to see?
Yeah.
All patients, all people, all politicians.
All of the people of Norway, let's say.
Care about yourself and care about others. Never lose sight of yes.
Yeah, and I maybe we were saying the other day, mental health now, because we have so many. We know what to do, how to help patients, and we really have the approaches to help, but we need to get it out there again. So there's no reason. We think it's really, when we are dedicating so much psychological help and assistance and therapy to young patients, at least in Norway. These patients we're talking about, 2/3 are affected before they are in the mid-20s, and we know how they can get a better life, and why should we wait helping them? Because this is actually, it has potentials in it to really change without using more resources. You're using less resources. So I say mental health now.
Absolutely.
And I would also, just one more thing, I would say, if you can't make it by yourself, seek help. Because I think it's so frustrating to meet so many people who say that I've been thinking about seeking help for so long, but I haven't. Yeah. And I really hope that people who have anxiety disorders, depression, different mental disorders, and I really hope that they will be even more consumer-based when it comes to requiring information about treatment delivered, about the results, transparency. So I hope that very often it just seems like they almost think that they should be in this kind of humble position and just accept whatever is provided for them. I hope that you really get more people being more demanding when it comes to getting information, transparency, high quality treatment. So if you do not succeed by yourself, seek help and be a quality seeking and consumer.
Yeah, consumer.
I think so. Consumer. Yeah, I think so.
Demand something from your
yes.
therapist because you expect.
Just seeing so many people who struggle for years, and we see that as well. And that is one of the frustrating things when it comes to the treatment, because we do systematic follow-up assessment with the patient. So 3 months after treatment, we have an appointment with them. We would check out how things are, and then again at 1 year. But usually we wouldn't do that routinely for more. And when we did, call the patients who had received treatment 3, 4, and 5 years ago, most of them were doing just fine. They had moved on, and things were really going good in their lives. It was so good to check in with them. But now and then we would have patients who said, for the last 2 years, I've been thinking about contacting you again, but I haven't, so I'm so glad you called. And that just makes me think about all the patients in the world who are not contacted. We're just letting go of them, and we don't ask them, 3 years afterwards, 5 years afterwards, how things are. And I think that we could actually find some, a lot of patients out there who really just need that call, that check-in, and often it doesn't require that much to help them. Often it's just, 1 or 2, 3 sessions, freshening and going through the things I did and help them get going again. And it's just terrible to see that they have been going on for several years when we should have checked in with them. Also, we should, as providers, we should also be more eager to check out how the patients we help, how they're doing. 3 years afterwards, 5 years afterwards, because sometimes one phone call like that is really life-changing.
Yeah, that's thank you both. I think that's an interesting take. I think two things there. One is for the therapist to consider contacting, emailing, calling, whatever, to reach out to their clients later on, but also for the clients to take ownership to reach out and make that call. But yeah, so I think the power's in both hands. But yeah, no, thank you for that. Is there anything else that I haven't asked you today that you wish you could have said or shared?
Tons, of course.
Yeah.
I mean, we are so passionate about
Yes.
this, so we could go on for yeah. Were you think about something specific, Bjarne?
Yes. I think that what we see is that during this kind of treatment, when we treat the patients, I mean, so many of them will also have they will have depression. So many will have other anxiety problems, interpersonal challenges. And what we see from the results is that if you treat the OCD and if you really succeed in doing it, most of the patients will also improve a lot when it comes to the comorbid, the additional problems they have. And you can have there can be different reasons for that. Of course, you have the patients succeed in something, and that will do something about the self-esteem, about whatever they have of, energy and ability to start working on the other stuff. It also seems like we are working on things that is not exclusive to OCD. We have some trans-diagnostic things going on here. And it seems like working on this kind of emotional regulation thing is helpful and also something they can generalize to other problems in their lives. And the patients would also say that explicitly. And because of that, we have been doing this program now also with patients with other disorders, and the results so far are really promising. So I think it's important to say that because you have so many listeners who have OCD, but also other challenges in their lives, that is not something that would be a hindrance for doing this treatment with them. They can expect to improve also when it comes to the other disorders. And even when they don't have OCD, but only, social anxiety and panic problems, depression, it seems like working this way, really specific, closely with the patients, that is a good model as well for those problems. And I think that's important. I think the OCD field has so much to offer and can be of value to other fields as well. And I think that's important to mention.
Yeah. No,
yeah.
Yes. Sorry, go on.
And we are really excited about next week, because now we are starting the journey in the US, and we really, to your listeners and to everyone, say spread the word, because now it's coming there, and what we have seen so far, this is exactly the same kind of patients that we are helping in Norway, that we've been helping in Iceland and Sweden. So it's coming, and we have reasons to have high expectations about this, because, and again, the clinic in Houston, they are such a fantastic team that will sort of be in the front when it comes to dissemination in the States. So spread the word and ensure that if anyone you know about really needs help, please let them have it.
So let me thank you guys for just doing the good work and for coming on the show and talking about your format. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really great talking to you.
So there you have it. Really hope you enjoyed my conversation with Gerd and Bjarne. And thank you, as always, for listening to the podcast. And quick disclaimer, guys, this podcast is not therapy. It is not a replacement for therapy. Please seek treatment from a trained professional. And until we speak, take care.